It's like they're actually keeping the consumer in the forefront of their mind. Crazy, I know. It's just kind of other small minor gripes. I wanted to have this review kind of be as transparent as possible. Kind of like any review, it's like throwing spaghetti against the wall. Some people it's going to relate to, some people it's not. You're like, I don't really care about the beeping. It takes place between 0.05 and 0.000. This is my go-to watch, and there's the benefits definitely outweigh the cons, but there were also some things that were definitely hard to kind of get used to as far as switching from the Apple Watch to the Coros Pace 3. To say the most notable difference comes down visually to the display on the Coros Pace 3 versus some of the other watches I've used, such as the Apple Watch Series 5. Some of you saw my post on Instagram of me calling this out. The lack of an AMOLED display took some getting used to. The colors lack vibrancy. The implied colors shown within the Coros app honestly really is misleading. I wish they showed more accurate representations of the watch faces inside the Coros Pace app, as well as marketing materials online, as you would see them on the watch. The display being that it's not an AMOLED display, it's not true to how they advertise the quality of the watch faces, specifically referring to the color saturation and contrast. Also, the marketing material shows that it has darker blacks than what the naked eye actually sees. The best way I can describe it is where Coros shows the black areas of this photo, to the naked eye actually looks like light leak issues. However, I feel compelled to see this as having its own benefits, namely, I feel the quality of the display's backlight and overall visual presentation is a contributing factor of how they're able to keep the cost down, as well as how well it performs under brighter and sunnier weather conditions, as opposed to the Apple Watch. So under direct sunlight, you can expect to see this display really well, something the Apple Watch sometimes struggles with at being bright enough during certain sunny and brighter days. A noticeable aspect of this also comes down to the relative aspects of the watch glass. The term night mode I think needs to be changed, or they need to add an additional backlight setting to clarify which is which. Night mode to me implies nighttime, or I don't need the backlight. But some may argue what I'm saying should be probably referred to as sleep mode. Regardless, the backlight doesn't do what I want it to do when I'm drifting off to sleep. It lights up and it's really bright in a pitch black room. In my opinion, there should be an additional setting called sleep mode that you can manually toggle on and off, and that will also put the watch display down to its least brightest setting possible. There just isn't enough customization for the sleep-related backlight right now, and the function needs to be more clearly labeled. So let's cover the downsides as far as the heart rate monitoring. Unlike most brand new watches these days that have been manufactured within the last 2 to 3 years, this watch doesn't notify you or monitor if you have atrial fibrillation, also known as AFib. Even the most expensive watches that Coros makes, such as the Apex and Apex Pro, even those don't provide this feature, even though they do have a required secondary sensor, which incidentally measures heart rate variability. I mean, even my wife's $70 Fitbit does this. Measuring AFib on fitness watches seems kind of a commonplace thing these days. But even though this secondary sensor isn't on the Coros Pace 3, I have to wonder if maybe Coros might make a firmware change to the Apex and Apex Pro at a later date for these models. Maybe it was in the works, but they figured it would be better to have the product out, sans AFib feature, and then roll it out on a later date once they had built a better system of accuracy, and then have a backward compatible update. I guess time will tell on that. So next, even though it's really cool, they have figured out a way to count reps during strength training sessions, the watch I found struggles to accurately count strength training movements. Often I found myself doing an entire amount of reps in a set, but the watch, despite large movements, failed to detect my movements at all, recording 0 amount of movements. Other sessions, I would find it would add too many reps for the amount I had done. Also, I found I had to wait to hit the lap button, which starts the rest period, until I could see the completed amount of reps get added, meaning it would take some time, sometimes up to 10 seconds for the watch to record the rest of the reps I had performed. And unfortunately, as far as I can tell, I cannot make corrections to the workouts after the fact. Nor could I find a way during the workout to make corrections or adjustments to things such as the amount of weight you're using or reps performed. So say you're doing a pyramid workout and you're really taxed that day and you lift heavy going down from 12, 10, 8, 6. If halfway through you decide you want to reduce the amount of weights or change your reps that you're lifting, there's not really a way to indicate that on the watch itself from what I could see. Being able to make these changes on device would be really helpful even if it's simply confirming the weight you did or the reps you did, that would make it accurate to the plan you built and loaded. It's not a reason to pass on buying this watch, but it's just something worth noting. If you're using something like the Gymshark app or the bodybuilding.com app, where you've set up your workouts on your phone as your primary input method, this will feel different from that experience. So legitimately, I don't know how to fix this next problem on the watch designer end. That being said, when you wear gloves during workout, so basically all winter sessions that I do where I live, when I'm out on my runs, when I'm wearing gloves, the movement of my hands when I'm running, just not even paying attention, I'm just doing my thing, it actually turns the crown and what's being displayed on the screen. So to counteract this, I end up having to roll my gloves up. It's a minor gripe. I couldn't find a way in settings to lock the crown from being rotated during a workout session. However, I might end up just changing the orientation of the watch. Okay, so I didn't want to set up all the lights and stuff like that because this should be like a really short thing that I wanted to talk about. But there's some other things that I found since recording the video originally. These are things that I found just over the last little bit that I'm like, these are important things to add as well. And honestly, the first and probably the biggest problem that I found with using this watch to me is going to come down to the paces. When I'm using the watch and I'm out and about and I'm just going through strides, the reaction time of the watch itself for when I change paces is really slow. It's agonizingly slow. It can be up to 20 seconds until the watch detects a change in pace, at least that's accurate to what I'm trying to do, that I'm conscious of trying to do. So if I'm changing in an interval session, it could be a 20-second interval session, and at the end when I stop my interval, essentially that's when the watch actually detects that I've made a change. And that can be really, really frustrating, especially in light of the fact that I've, in the last probably 2 or 3 years, have been using the Stride Foot Pod, which has been really helpful for me to get accurate data from changes in pace as I'm going through interval sessions, and even just in daily runs too. So that's one really important thing that I wanted to bring up too. Another one of the things that I wanted to bring up is that workouts, when I set up a workout for a day or schedule a workout, I remember I set up one at night before I went to bed, and it didn't sync even to the next morning. So you kind of have to be attentive in that way. So if you create a workout, you kind of have to pay attention if it's going to be syncing over. And if not, then you kind of have to do a force sync. But there's not really necessarily a great way to force sync it, which is a little frustrating. So keep that in mind as you're going through and adding workouts to the watch. Another thing that I found that's pretty different from the Apple Watch experience to the Coros experience is that you can get texts that come through on your device. That's not the weird thing. The weird thing for me is that there's no security. There's no privacy. There's no passcode you can use to lock your Coros watch. So if you're somebody who doesn't want your text message being read, the hypothetical of your text messages being read, there's no real way to set up a passcode on device. You may not have a problem with that. You may be like, well, when would anybody have my watch? Like, I'm the only one who would have my watch unless something bad happened to me. Yeah, so, I mean, if that's your perspective, then sure, like, if you don't care. I do think that there hasn't been a lot of thought that's gone into that as far as privacy. Like, if you have your bank send you a text message code for you to have a second verification, so you can get a text with your bank authorization code or any other two-step verification that requires text messaging that gets sent to your phone and gets sent to your watch via your phone. All that stuff will come through on your watch without any security. Seems a little bit of a concern to me. I would like a passcode lock on my watch. That'd be awesome. At least having the option, you know. Another thing that I found was quite confusing, because I've been using my Stride Foot Pod as an alternative to the Coros Foot Pod, and it works great. Works seamlessly, but there is a caveat to that. You have to go into the accessories menu and force connect to the Stride Foot Pod, or any accessory for that matter. It's confusing because when you're there starting a workout, you see the Stride logo and it flashing and flashing, and then it'll stop flashing and it'll stay on as if it's connected. But I can assure you that regardless of this, unless you actually go in and connect to your Stride Foot Pod via the accessories menu, it doesn't matter what the workout screen says, that is not going to be using your Stride Foot Pod as the primary means of recording your information, your pace, your cadence, your power, so on and so forth. Therein lies the problem that I originally was talking about before, that it doesn't give you accurate or quick enough pace data. So yeah, you can pull up your watch before you start your workout. It can have a lineup of different accessory options. The Stride Foot Pod can blink, and then it'll stop blinking, as if it implies like, okay, we're connected. We're going to be using this as our primary means of recording your pace. You know, intuitively, as you're going through your paces, if you're trying to pick up the pace and it takes 20 seconds for you to actually see that pace change in your watch, you know it's not using that Stride Foot Pod. So you have to go into the accessories menu in order for it to connect to your Stride Foot Pod. I also have a Wahoo cadence sensor. Anything with that, it will not automatically connect, even though it sort of implies that on the workout screen. Just because you see the Stride Foot Pod blinking and then stop blinking and staying there and implying like, okay, we're good, just like it does for heart rate and satellite, don't be fooled into thinking that it's actually using the Stride Foot Pod. It's definitely not. And so other than that, it's just kind of other small minor gripes. But I wanted to have this review kind of be as transparent as possible, so at least you're given enough information that, you know, kind of like any review, it's like throwing spaghetti against the wall. Some people it's going to relate to, some people it's not. You're like, I don't really care about the beeping that takes place between 0.05 and 0.000, you know? So it's like, I'm just trying to give you enough information for you to understand maybe some of the downsides. I still love the watch, and I prefer this watch over the Apple Watch. Honestly, in this next section, I'm going to talk about how there's things that I'm still going to use the Apple Watch for, mostly cellular, and a couple of smart home things. But other than that, I've honestly just been keeping it on the charger. So that's kind of my new reality, is that this is my go-to watch, and there's the benefits definitely outweigh the cons. But there were also some things that were definitely hard to kind of get used to, as far as switching from the Apple Watch to the Coros Pace 3. So I just want to cover why I won't completely stop using my Apple Watch. These are a few examples of why I'll still likely continue using my Apple Watch, even if it's less frequently. The first one being, and my primary reason, is cellular. I'll still be using my Apple Watch as it's perfect for cellular features. I hate carrying my phone on my workouts, so if I can avoid it doing on shorter runs, I'll solely rely on my Apple Watch for communication to my wife or EMS if need be. As an example, I was running on the island of Maui, and I had to call into EMS services because a fire broke out due to some people being pretty negligent. So I was able to call and report this only due to the fact that I had a device on me at the time to do so. Let's not forget that you may never be in a situation that requires emergency services. However, imagine coming across someone as I did. If I had not carried a device to call, who knows how long it would have taken for me to call or have a first responder on the scene. Anyway, all that being said, I prefer not to run with a phone, and I prefer to run with my Apple Watch. Therefore, running with an additional watch with cellular capabilities is preferential. So another thing for me is Apple Pay. This is something I noticed right away when I went to retail stores and even going on trips elsewhere. Apple Pay has been rooted in my daily life more than I expected. It's just so much more convenient to pay with my Apple Watch. Yes, you can pay with your Apple Watch on your phone, and yes, you can carry your credit card or debit card. But when you've gotten used to anything that's convenient, even a process you used to do previously that was convenient, such as using the cards, all of a sudden are seen as that much more inconvenient compared to the new way of doing something. First world problems, I get it. Buckle up, because I'm about to talk about more first world problems. Smart House. So let's cover Smart House notifications and controls. Not as much anymore for controlling specific smart lights, switches, bulbs, things like that. But from my front door, especially when I go out on my run, it's something that's really helpful. It's a smart lock. It means I don't need to carry a house key, and I can unlock it using Siri. I can control it through cellular connections, as well as view related smart notifications, such as when my front door is locked or unlocked, or to get notifications from my smart doorbell, including snapshots when motion is detected in my front yard or backyard. I can control my garage, as well as get notifications for when it's been opened or closed. So it really goes beyond when I'm actually simply on a run. I get notifications wherever and whenever I have my watch with me. When I first got this watch set up, I was trying to reduce the amount of time wearing the Apple Watch, and use the Coros Pace 3 more. I found I was subconsciously raising my wrist to look for a few of these features, just habitually because I'm so used to using them on the Apple Watch. One of them being just outside temperature and weather. Now, they've added this feature since the most recent update, but before, when I first got the watch, this feature wasn't there at all. And even so, it's not actually on the watch face. So that's kind of a different thing. You can set up complications on the Apple Watch. It's not on the Coros complications. It's not available there for the watch faces. And honestly, I wish it was, because I find myself often looking to the watch to inform me multiple times a day over the last few months of what the weather was like. Another thing is kind of a two-part. It's somewhat tied to my need for a timer, but also a need for reminders and also a need for alarms. This all culminates around using Siri. By far the biggest reason I have for an Apple Watch just generally in life is the seamless integration of Siri. This is the part where I'd say, if you know, you know. When I'm able to use Siri, I don't have as much need to use the buttons. I don't have to dive into the menus. With timers on an Apple Watch, I just tell Siri how much time I want to set, and it's done. On the Coros watch, there's really not a quick way to set timers or alarms, and there's no way to set reminders. You have to go into the tools menu by holding down the smaller button. There you can spin the larger crown to navigate to the timer. If you have a pre-existing timer, you can simply use one of those. But if you need to set a new timer, it's quite an astonishing process at how many times that I call on Siri on the Apple Watch alone. It just makes it super easy to create reminders, set timers, and alarms, send text messages at a glance weather. You can just check it by simply raising your wrist. One press can sometimes reduce up to 11 presses on the Coros watch. For example, that's a count from the amount of buttons pressed required in order to set an alarm. That doesn't even factor the scrolling on the crown if you're halfway around the tools menu. So these are all features I can't get with the Coros watch that are important to me. Not important to necessarily anyone else, but they're definitely important to me. And at the same time, I do understand to add these to the Coros watch would be out of its primary objective and even counter to the purpose of the Coros demographic. I could set up notifications via text. However, I would still need a phone on me at the time to get these notifications to come through, thereby defeating the purpose, which is basically to say I don't want to carry my phone with me. But I have to be honest with you that this is the clear difference between a lifestyle watch versus a fitness watch. If you want a designated fitness watch for training, the Coros Pace 3 compared to the Apple Watch can't be beat. But if you want functionality for lifestyle needs, then you may want to stick with your Apple Watch. So with all that, I'm going to cover the summary. This has been a lot of information. Hopefully I wasn't really necessarily drinking from a fire hose. Hope you found this video helpful, but yeah, let's cover that summary right now. So I like this watch mostly for the price tag. It's a standalone device that doesn't require any additional subscription fees. This part is huge for me as I align with the average consumer in similar ways of how I spend my money, as it's also a significantly less expensive choice than the current Apple Watch price tag and even the Apple Watch SE price tag. It's like they're actually keeping the consumer in the forefront of their mind. Crazy, I know. Next, if I were to talk to someone who is new to running, and to that same person who doesn't want to have their watch be another way someone can get a hold of them, or if you're overwhelmed by the prospect of getting bombarded with too many notifications, this watch might be exactly what you're looking for. The next thing, if you need mapped guidance, turn-by-turn navigation for the trails or roads, this watch has it built in. If you want to head to the track or do interval sessions or repeats with a plethora of various metrics such as pace, heart rate for certain times or specific distances with warm-ups, cooldowns, rests, recoveries in between. If you want a watch that has insanely good battery life, even able to help you conquer ultra marathons, or you just want to have a watch you simply don't need to charge overnight, this might be a watch for you. Now, even though this watch has power built in, or watts, if you have a stride foot pod or an external heart rate sensor, this watch easily pairs to all those accessories to utilize all those features. So cadence, power, and other detailed stride metrics can be used so you can train to the exact way you want. If you're like me and you want to have all your running metrics at a glance or from a scroll of the crown, then you'll probably love this watch. Overall, it provides so many great features that it's difficult to ignore the fact that this watch really is a watch that does it all for a fraction of the price of its competitors. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below. If there's something that you think I missed, let me know and I'd be happy to answer any further questions about the watch from the comment section down below. So that concludes my review, my very lengthy review on the Coros Pace 3. I hope you found this video helpful. Hit the like button if you did, and please share it with someone if you think they'd like this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know in the comment section down below what watch you've used thus far, and if you're considering switching to the Coros watch. What's a feature mentioned in this video that you found really helpful and you want to incorporate in the next training block or in your next weekly runs? And if anyone asks you what your favorite running YouTube channel is, just tell them it's time to run.